Hello, good afternoon and welcome to Midday Live here on TV3. My name is Kwesi Asare. Ahead this afternoon. The NPP's Lydia Sairam Al-Hassan is MP-elect for the Ayawaso West Wuogon constituency as groups condemn violence that erupted during the polls. Also, U.S. invokes visa restrictions on Ghana. And elsewhere on the foreign front, Zimbabwe's president dismisses reports of a rift with his deputy.
Oh yes, thank you very much. We'll be back.
We have details of these and many more stories coming up in the next 60 minutes. We're also streaming live on Facebook. Be reminded that you can join us with your views, comments, and suggestions on any of our top stories this hour. Visit any of our social media pages on Facebook and on Twitter. Let's begin with some politics. And the wife of the late New Patriotic Party Member of Parliament for the Ayawaso West Wuogon constituency, Ms. Lydia Sairam Al-Hassan, emerged winner of the by-election. Ms. Lydia Al-Hassan garnered 12,041 votes out of the 17,501 valid votes cast.
Lydia Sairam Al-Hassan, NPP, 12,041.
The National Democratic Congress, Delali Brimpong, was her closest contender, polling 5,341 votes. She retained the seat for the MPP with a 5,460 vote margin and percentage vote of 68.80, with the NDC's candidates attaining 30.52% of the votes. The voter turnout of 17,589 from the 137 polling centers represents 19.83% of the constituency voter population of 88,710. Madam Sairam Al-Hassan dedicated her victory to her late husband, insisting it is indicative that people of Ayawaso West Wuogon appreciate the work of her late husband.
It is a referendum. It is a yes vote for Akufo-Nana Akufo-Addo. It means that the people of Ayawaso West are appreciative of what has been done within this last 2 years.
She outlined her vision for the constituency, which included empowering women and creating jobs for the youth.
A scholarship scheme to support our brilliant but needy students. I would ensure that the vulnerable women and children in this constituency find something to do.
Thursday, January 31, happened to be her birthday, and she thanked the constituent for what she described as the best birthday presents ever.
Happy birthday to you.
Meanwhile, officials from the Electoral Commission at some polling stations in the Ayawaso West Wuogon constituency by-election had a failed day as the polling stations recorded very low turnouts. Our correspondent Godfrey Tanam, who was stationed around Jowulu and Abelemkpe, reports the absence of queues synonymous with elections.
Preparation towards the Ayawaso West Wuogon by-election suggested interest was high. Conversely, turnout was disappointing. Most of the people who turned out to cast their votes seemed to be in their 30s and above, as voters in their 20s. As voters in their 20s were hardly noticed. Some police stations like the King of Kings International School recorded 73 out of 713 as at 1 p.m. at Polling Station A, 104 votes out of 626 expected voters at Polling Station B, 123 out of 463 at Polling Station C. At Jowolu JHS Polling Station 1A out of 463, 106 votes were recorded as at 1:30 p.m. with 1B recorded 105 out of 646 expected voters. Solid Foundation Polling Station had 811 expected voters, 120 had voted as to 5 p.m. Earlier, the Progressive People's Party candidate William Duhokbo said he was satisfied with the process and stated he was not intimidated by the presence of armed security officers.
This constituency quite stable and level-headed people, so I don't expect anything untoward to happen here.
Before the news team arrived at Polling Station C at the Jowolu JHS, some misunderstanding had erupted.
He came with a polling station code that doesn't belong here, and then I have to come in. He didn't come to me, but later when I heard it, I have to rush in and then explain to them. But what causes this was his brother rather following him. He rather didn't understand that why is it that the person voted here and then he's no more here.
The security at the Bilingpe Junior High School was immediately beefed up when some macho men arrived at the center.
Now, we're going to stay a while longer on yesterday's by-elections because 9 of the persons who were admitted at the Legon Hospital due to injuries from a shooting incident at Bawaleshi have been discharged. The administrator of the hospital, Eric Gazy, said one is in critical condition and has been referred to the 37 military hospital.
The injured were rushed to the Legon Hospital after sustaining injuries from a shooting incident at the Bawaleshi Presby Polling Center and the residence of the NDC aspirant Selassie Brimpong. The victims, whose identities are not yet known, are believed to be members of the opposition NDC who were around their candidate's residence to assist the party's activities for the day. Administrator of the Legon Hospital, Eric Gazy, confirming the admission, said 9 have been discharged.
Almost all have been discharged, apart from the 4 here and the 2 we sent to theater. So, maximum of 6 are here. They are emergency, receiving care.
He confirmed 1 has been transferred to the 37 military hospital.
Unfortunately, one of them was critically wounded and it was far beyond what we could assist here immediately. So we had to refer him to 37 military hospital and we conveyed him there with the hospital's ambulance.
An eyewitness and a relative of one of the injured persons accused the NPP Invincible Forces of being behind the attack.
We are in the MP's house where we saw a Visible Boys group. They just came to the scene. They were just searching one of our people. So through then, they started attacking us. They wanted to enter the MP's house. We said no, we won't give them chance to enter there. So from there, they started shooting straight bullets.
But how sure are you that?
Meanwhile, the United Nations Development Programme, that's the UNDP, has condemned the violence that rocked a polling station at Bawaleshi in Accra during Thursday's by-elections. The UNDP released a statement on Friday that such brazen acts of violence undermine Ghana's democracy.
The statement called on all to avoid violence and the use of inflammatory language that could further increase tensions. The UNDP reminded Ghanaians of the country's tag as a pillar of stability in the sub-region and urged all to ensure it is not eroded. Men dressed in black polo shirts and khaki trousers stormed the Bawaleshi Primary School polling station on Thursday morning, where voting was ongoing to elect a new MP. The men, believed to be working for the governing party, are alleged to have fired gunshots and even slapped Ningo Prampram NDC legislator Samuel George, who in the video appeared to be questioning them. Police reports say 6 people were injured in the violence. The NDC reacted to the violence by withdrawing from the by-election, accusing the NPP and President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo of deliberately intimidating voters and their polling agents. Police have started investigations into the incident.
All right, so we're going to stay on our Ayawaso. We'll hold on to Ayawaso and all the happenings after the by-election. There's been lots of responses I beg your pardon, there have been lots of responses after the by-election yesterday. Let's take some stories and then we'll return to Ayawaso. And the United States has sanctioned Ghana over a lack of cooperation in accepting Ghanaians deported from the United States. Well, according to a statement monitored in Accra, the U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo ordered embassy officers in Ghana to implement the visa restrictions on certain categories of visa applicants.
Categories of applicants to be affected are not elaborated on in the statement. Under Section 243 of the Immigration and Nationality Act, Secretary of Homeland notified Secretary of State Mike Pompeo that the government of Ghana has denied or unreasonably delayed accepting their nationals ordered removed from the United States. Again, the statement warned that Ghana faced more sanctions if the government's posture did not change. The scope of these sanctions may be expanded to a wider population. The sanctions will remain in place until Secretary of Homeland Securities notifies Secretary Pompeo that cooperation on removals have improved to an acceptable level. Reports monitored said Ghana has failed to live up to its obligations under international law to accept the return of its nationals ordered removed from the United States. Indications from as far back as 2017 indicated that 7,000 Ghanaians were facing deportation. The then U.S. Ambassador to Ghana, Robert P. Jackson, said the 7,000 were guilty of various immigration offences and had abused the terms of their visas. At the time, he said Ghanaians were at different stages of the deportation process. The government was at the time also worried about reports of the ill treatment of Ghanaians deported by the U.S. government.
All right, so away from the United States, let's hop on the phone lines now and get to Parliament. My colleague Mercy Darling Loco is there with all the minorities holding a press conference. Mercy, what can you report
on the matter, since he's been one of the people that had raised concerns earlier on the issue? Good afternoon and welcome to TV3, sir.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, are you surprised about the sanctions that the U.S. government has laid on Ghana for its refusal to accept Ghanaian deportees?
Yes, I think the short answer is yes. We know that the Americans had indicated probably about a year and a half to 2 years ago that they were scheduled to deport about some 7,000 persons that they believed were Ghanaians in the U.S. And this was as a result of changes in U.S. laws. Indeed, thereafter, we had indications that if our country didn't act, find an amicable arrangement with the U.S. to allow for them to be deported, it was likely that would be sanctioned. And so if the Americans have decided to place some sanctions on us because they believe that we have not taken this matter very seriously, I think that the time has come for us to address the issue. As a member of the committee, I can tell you that the leadership of the committee has indicated through writing that the minister comes to Parliament to brief the committee about what is being done to address what is now a very topical and pressing issue. So we are looking forward to engaging the minister to find out what government is doing through her ministry to address this matter.
Okay, so how soon is the committee expecting to meet with the minister? How soon do you want her to appear before your committee?
Well, this information came, I think, only last night, and today is Friday. We have risen. So we have intentions to engage in the early part of next week. So the idea is that latest by Thursday, we should have had that meeting with the minister, and then we can see the way forward. But I must add that, you know, this tendency to try and wait for decisions to be made before we then react is not very useful. I believe many viewers would agree that I have advocated and spoken about this for several months, over a year now, continuously trying to find out what government is doing to try and address this issue. I believe if government had acted, because my questions were based on the worry that we could face this type of consequence, perhaps a solution could have been found and we wouldn't have to face the current situation where Ghanaian citizens perhaps would not have the opportunity to travel to the U.S. easily, to study, to visit family, or on business trips. It has implications for the movement of Ghanaians.
Okay, finally, wouldn't you think it would have been fair if the sanctions is extended to members of parliament and government officials? Because as it stands, it's just the ordinary Ghanaian that's going to suffer from these sanctions, not MPs, not government officials.
Well, on a matter of equity, I think that I agree with you, but you must also remember that we represent ordinary Ghanaians. So, in spite of the fact that the Americans have chosen not to include this category of persons within the context of the ban, that certainly should not be a reason for us to rest on our oars. We need to be up and doing. And that is why I've advocated all along that we needed to address this issue. But I think your question is legitimate, because it is those of us who have been put in charge of affairs who are expected to conduct and engage the Americans on behalf of the people. So if this has happened in another way, it indicates a failure of leadership. And therefore, the leadership of the nation, those of us who are being paid to represent the people, the executive, the legislature, and the rest of us, certainly should also bear a part of the brunt. So yeah, I think your question is fair, but nonetheless, we will continue to fight for the better interests of Ghanaians.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Kevin.
You are welcome.
All right, so we're going to do some more analysis on this breaking news story. Rashid Haruna is an international relations analyst. He joins us on the phone lines. Thank you, Mr. Haruna, for your time. So what does this mean for Ghana?
Well, I think what it means, well, first of all, good afternoon, and, thanks for the opportunity. And Jummah Mubarak to all your Muslim listeners. I think what it means to Ghana is it brings to the fore the issue.
Hello, Rashid Haruna, can you hear me? Well, I'm afraid we've lost Rashid Haruna on the phone line. He's an international relations analyst helping us to do some analysis on this breaking news story. We're told that the U.S. government has placed a visa restriction ban on Ghana, and we essentially want to find out the implications of this latest ban on the country. You heard Mercy Loco Darling there in Parliament speaking to one of the parliamentarians and what this means for Parliament and what they intend to do. We're told Rashid Haruna is back on the phone lines. So you were talking about the implications on Ghana.
Yeah, well, I mean, the implications first, very straightforward. What it means is that there's going to be, I don't think it's going to affect the good bilateral relations that we have with the U.S., the long-standing bilateral relations that we have with the U.S. But what it also means is that when there needs to be a better dialogue, better coordination between our embassies in the U.S. and the ICS, officers. The customs and enforcement officers in the U.S. that look to these issues about getting deported or people that are there illegally. But more importantly, what it also would have, the meaning that it would have has to do more with, how are we managing the dialogue, the information that comes forth? Because you see, before anything happens, they need to inform us. And a lot of times you have other nationals who are not necessarily Ghanaians in the U.S. who claim to be Ghanaians because they use Ghanaian passports. And Ghanaian passports are so easy to come by, even here in Ghana. So there needs to be better, enforcement, better due diligence to make sure that the people that are actually being asked to be deported are actually Ghanaians, and then also kind of follow the protocol. This is international law. It's not something that we can say that we're not going to do, because the same thing, if we have to get someone out of Ghana who's an American, we would seek cooperation of the U.S. Embassy in Ghana. So we just have to be careful and make sure that the dialogue is there and we cooperate with them. But at the same time, check to make sure that the people that are supposedly Ghanaians, I say supposedly because I'm very much aware of instances where people have claimed Ghanaian citizenship but they really are not. And it kind of tarnishes the image of the country because they get involved in all kinds of activities, illegal activities that brings bad reputation to the country.
Dr. Rashid Haruna, I've got to say a big thank you to you. Dr. Rashid Haruna is an international relations analyst. And we're going to go back now to Ayawaso, the Ayawaso West Wagon constituency. And the police service has denied knowledge of the masked men who stormed the polling station in the by-elections in the constituency. But a deputy national organizer of the NPP, Elvis Buta, says the police service cannot claim they do not know the masked men. Now, speaking on New Day, the deputy national organizer said the men were there to ensure peace and were only provoked to act.
Elvis Buta said the police cannot claim they do not know the men.
I am not sure the Ghana Police Service will allow unknown, if you like it, quote-unquote, criminals to just jump onto an elections ground and begin to do certain things.
Again, he said the men were there to ensure peace and only acted when they were provoked.
And by the way, these people were calm until some judge and his boys went there to create trouble. If you claim they were shooting instances, and armed security personnel have come to take charge of the security of the area, clearly you should tell a reasonable man that they are doing so to protect the life and property of the candidate.
Meanwhile, the minority spokesperson on defense and interior is calling for a bipartisan investigations into what happened during the Ayawaso West Wagon constituency by-election. He, however, admitted the counter-terrorism unit of the Ghana Police Service was set up during the NDC administration.
Yesterday's happenings was a clear manifestation of the state of insecurity this country has found itself in. I mean, for the first time in our political history, masked men, whether or not they belong to any of the known security agencies of state established by law, is a question that you and I must begin to look for answers for.
But the police say they don't belong to their fold.
Absolutely, and is that not revealing enough? If they don't belong to the fold of police, they don't belong to our armed forces. Who has raised a private army under this constitutional dispensation?
National security operatives.
National security operatives. National security is supposed to be a coordinating agency.
They're not supposed to have men.
They are not supposed to have troops or a standing force of their own, other than the police and the military. So we're in dangerous times. The identities of those people must be established. Who gave them AK-47 assault rifles? Are those weapons that belong to the state? If the weapons do not belong to our state, should they not be charged with unlawful possession of firearms? Who gave them the SWAT vehicle that they drove in? That vehicle belongs to the state. I know when that vehicle was procured. How did they come by that vehicle? How did they come by that vehicle?
Is there a unit called anti-terrorism squad?
Yes. We established the counter-terrorism unit of the police service.
All right, so you're still watching Midday Live here on TV3. Remember, we're streaming live on Facebook. You can join us with your views and comments and suggestions as well on any of our top stories this hour. Do well to post a comment on Facebook or on Twitter. We'll take a short break. When we return, we've got more stories and analysis to make. All right, so you're welcome back to Midday Live here on TV3. We're streaming live on Facebook, and we've been heavy on yesterday's by-elections at the Ayawaso West Wagon constituency. Lots of reactions to happenings in the constituency yesterday. In studio, I've been joined by two gentlemen. Dr. Justice Tenkebe is an expert on policing and teaches at the Cambridge University. Also, Emmanuel Sowate is a security analyst. They've joined me in the studio to do some analysis on yesterday's happenings. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your time, and good to have you in studio. I'll start off with you, Dr. Justice Tenkebe, and I'd like us to look at it from the point of view of the police. The police were heavily involved in yesterday's by-elections. Then we saw another set of security personnel who were masked. Now, after what happened yesterday, we've spoken to the police and they claim they do not know these people. Is this a standard practice?
I think it would be rather strange for you to say you have more or less extra legal actors in the security space without, I'm not saying the police necessarily had to know, but it would seem to suggest that we could ask the police a few hard questions. If they didn't know where these actors came from, what have they done so far to try to find out who they were? Where did they come from? What sort of security arrangements were made? When did they know that these actors had entered the space? And what did they do about it? I think those sort of questions can put people's anxieties at rest.
Is it not more risky when we saw policemen stand by and watch violence being perpetrated on ordinary citizens?
I think that is extremely worrying. I saw some videos suggesting that. And I think this is where we really, I think this is a critical moment for the police. It's what you might call a teachable moment. That what do they learn from this incident? And how far does that go into the way they train police officers? Who were the police officers assigned to that, to the elections? Have the police taken steps to ensure that the officers account for their presence in those areas and their inaction as far as these incidents are concerned?
I'll come back to you to find out if indeed sanctions should be meted out to some people yesterday. But Dr. Sowate is also a security analyst. Emmanuel Sowate is a security analyst, has joined us. So what are the implications of what happened yesterday for the 2020 general elections?
Yeah, I think that is clear early warning sign. I know that usually getting very close to elections, you have some degree of tensions, and the tensions sometimes manifest in different ways and forms. And I think that the greatest asset we have now as a country is the time between now and 2020.
What can possibly be done to stop this?
We are talking about sanctions. You need to deter people. There are a number of ways you deter people. And one of it is the certainty of arrest. And I think that people will have to be held accountable. But in addition to that, you see, when it comes to management of small arms and light weapons, especially rifles, there is a very meticulous process of keeping, stockpiling weapons, issuing it out. Not only in terms of the serial number, the name, the time, but even as much as the ammunition, as detailed as the ammunitions. And I'm wondering, and where you keep usually the guns in armories and the ammunition in magazines, I'm wondering that if these guys are really extra legal, where did they get the weapons from? Where are those weapons being kept? Who issues out the weapons? Who monitors the number of weapons given out, the ammunitions, the names, the serial numbers? Where repeating myself, are they kept in somebody's room somewhere leaning against a wall? Because usually there is, if you're keeping stockpiles, there is a particular way you design the armories and the magazines. There are particular structures in it to make it difficult for anybody to just yank out a rifle and just go. There's a reason for that. When I say that, the design, the auditing procedures, the processes that one has to go through to issue weapons and retrieve weapons are born up out of years of pain where arms had been used for very violent things outside the perimeters of the state. And I think that those are my questions.
We cannot talk about this without pinpointing the role of political actors in all this. Should the IGP be resigning from his job?
I think that, let's wait for response. I think that to be harsh. But on that same note, I think that civil society, especially those interested in the security sector, should keep a keen eye on the Director General Operations. Because for me, at least at this point, for him to have been so brave to say that at least he doesn't know these people, means that he's virtually put his not job on the line. He's going to have serious, quiet political backlash.
Why so?
Because you are telling the political actors, you are telling the powers that be, that listen, I'm not going to cover up for things that you are doing that are extra
police or extra legal. That the political actors know about these people.
It will be worse off if nobody knows about them. Nobody defined as the police, the BNI, the ministry in charge of internal and even external security, because assuming that the weapons and these are mercenaries coming from outside.
So I'll come back to you on how we can move forward, especially as we have a 2020 elections coming our way. Dr. Justice Tenkebe is an expert in policing, also teaches at the Cambridge University. Sir, what's the way forward in dealing with this matter? Should people be losing their jobs?
I think people can lose their job for the symbolic value, or in terms of the symbolic value of reassuring the public that people are being held to account. But the problem or the reason for these things isn't an individual problem, it's an institutional problem. So unless you are dealing with those institutional factors that make police services ineffective or lead to a situation where the public have lost confidence or a certain degree of confidence in that police institution, you can continue to change police chiefs, nothing would happen. So I think it goes back to the point I was trying to make, that we should be asking the questions, demanding answers, not just for this particular incident, but also to see what sort of reforms can we make or can we put in place arising from this incident. The problem we've had is that even if there were to be some investigations into this particular incident, it's a kind of, we limit it to that particular incident, rather than taking advantage of that to ask broader questions about the kind of institutional reforms that we might need and how that will help us to address these problems.
Mrs. Suwate, quickly in 30 seconds, how should we position ourselves for the next general elections?
I think that if you look at the early warning signs, and everybody should try to play the role they have to play. That's the way forward. But repeating what I said, we should all encourage police officers who would want to stand between, for example, it's not all politicians who really want to undermine, not all of them, but generally there's that proclivity. Who wants to stand between them and what the politicians want to do. In the short term, as Justice was saying, in the short term, it might cost you, referring to your career, promotion, transfers. But in the long term, I think, especially the Director General Operations, I think he's left a big legacy for himself. He may suffer in the short term, but I think that when the big guys stand up for the service, sometimes it really helps. Justice?
Quickly.
No, I'm just going to say that when it comes to political independence, it's not something that politicians willingly offer the police. It's something that the police themselves must demand, must assert, and be willing to make whatever career sacrifices that are needed.
All right, thank you very much, gentlemen. Emmanuel Suwate is a security analyst. Dr. Justice Tenkebe is an expert on policing and teaches at the Cambridge University. So watching Midday Live here on TV3. We'll take a short break. When we return, we've got the very latest in business news.
The business news segment is brought to you by MTN, Universal Merchant Bank.
Now, Ghana secured $866 million as returns on oil revenue invested since its commercial production. Now, according to the latest report on petroleum funds released by the central bank, the Heritage Fund, which was set up to support the country's future generation when the oil reserves are depleted, also contributed some $485 million.
That as at the end of December last year, Ghana's share of oil revenue, which has been invested in government-backed securities outside the country, stood at $866 million. The stabilization levy contributed $381 million to the total investment returns. The stabilization levy was set up so that part of oil revenue secured is put into this fund that government can fall on to cushion consumers if petroleum prices go up significantly. However, the data showed some $206 million had been withdrawn from the fund, but checks with the annual petroleum fund give some explanation. The Petroleum Revenue Management Act allows for withdrawals from the Ghana Stabilization Fund to support shortfalls in the ABFA, and also allows the Minister of Finance to set up a cap on the Ghana Stabilization Fund and withdraw the excess over the cap for contingency and debt repayment. Total petroleum receipts, that is proceeds from liftings and other petroleum receipts, as at December 2018 was $964 million.
All right, you still watching Midday Live here on TV3. When we return, we've got the very latest in sports news. Now, reigning queen of Ghana, Most Beautiful Abena, and her two deputies paid a courtesy call on GTP to show their appreciation to the brand for their support during the pageant. The GTP took advantage of the queen's visit to redeem their pledge to them.
Nobody contest, Ghana culture the best, Ghana's most beautiful. Yeah.
Known as Abena, the reigning queen beat 4 other contestants in the just-ended Ghana's Most Beautiful pageant. In addition to the brand new car, 10,000 cedis cash and the prestigious crown, there's also a whole year's supply of GTP fabrics for Abena. The first runner-up, Ohima, is also entitled to 6 months' supply of GTP fabric, whilst Wekia get to walk away with 3 months as the second runner-up. At a short welcome ceremony held at the premises of GTP, Managing Director Eric Van der Sijge pledged to sustain the welcoming relationship between the two brands.
I think really that Ghana's Most Beautiful fits very nicely with our GTP. So we've done it already quite a number of years, and I hope we can continue. And I also hope that you, as let's say 2018 Ghana's Most Beautiful, and also the 2019 Ghana Most Beautiful ladies are going to be good ambassadors again for our GTP brand.
The affable queens expressed gratitude for the kind gesture.
Yes, we wear Ghana to put our Ghanaian fashion on the global map. However, we are very thankful and grateful. That's why we are here today to say a big thank you for your support in last year's Ghana's Most Beautiful.
After all the formalities, Marketing Manager Stephen Bedu led the queens through various departments and levels of producing the timeless GTP fabrics.
The life, they will live and you ban you back. What here fell, they will live and you ban you back. Cause this is the life, they will live and you ban you back. What here fell, they will live and you ban you back. Cause this is the life.
At the packaging and labeling department, they were engaged in some activities.
Well, it has been a lesson to be learned, knowing how young men and women in our country are so creative to produce quality designs for us to wear Ghana. We are so proud of our people, we are so proud of GTP. We tell them to continue producing quality fabrics for us, and we shall wear Ghana and promote Ghana to the world.
For the whole year, the culture ambassadors will turn up at every invited occasion in beautiful GTP fabric.
Nobody contest, Ghana culture the best, Ghana's most beautiful.
In other news, Lifestyle Today takes a look at the return of an old fashion trend. Fascinators, which traces its roots to the Western world as a headpiece, has eventually grown popular across the world.
Black jersey on the beat. Can't promise.
The headpiece that became popular in the 1990s in the Western countries has grown popular across different countries. A bit of history. In the 18th and 19th century, a fascinator was an oblong head covering made of silk, lace, or net, according to the Fashion Dictionary, and is mostly known to be worn by the English royal family.
Ever since she came out, I never felt this way before.
A fascinator is a hat-like fashion which is attached to either a headband or a clip on top of the head. The English formal look is making its appearance once again in fashion world in the form of fascinator hats. Modern day fascinators are commonly made with feathers, flowers or beads and are mostly seen at big weddings. Since the wedding scene is all about bold looks, it's really no surprise that fascinators are back on the heads of fashionable Ghanaian women. A fascinator can be an amalgamation of feathers, lace, and intricate design. It is seen as a work of art instead of a piece to warm your head. Fascinators are a great way to accentuate an outfit. It is the new fashion trend in Ghana now. But are we rocking it well?
All right, so that's how we conclude Midday Live here on TV3. Thanks very much for watching. For more news, you can log on to our website, www.3news.com. My name is Pakuti Asari. Enjoy your weekend.